Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We'll be covering 4 different topics. The first one's going to be about how can teams that made it to the divisional series improve and get farther than that and elevate their teams a little bit. Next, we'll be talking about smaller free agents still out there on the market. We've heard a lot about the big free agents, the Boris 4 in a way, but what about the smaller guys that can still make a big impact to a team? So we'll be talking about that. Then we'll be talking about the spring training standing so far and what to make of it. And finally, just some other news around the league that I did think was important. Before we do that, I would like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read on the air and by me, please use the link you see on the screen there, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help me. It really does help the show. It really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. Also, I noticed that 51% of the people watching this content are not subscribed, so be sure to subscribe. You get updates whenever we post. You can see all of our videos, not just mine, but everyone else's who makes great content as well. So, subscribe. 51% of you are not who watch our content, so please do. You get notified. It helps us a lot, so thank you so much for that. All right, so we're going to get into our first segment here today. And our first segment is going to be what I previewed a little bit in the intro, and that is going to be about talking about teams who made it to the divisional round of the playoffs, and how they can improve and get farther than that. So obviously the past 2 or 3 days I've been talking about teams who made it to the World Series and the Championship Series and all that stuff, and how they can improve and how they can get past that. But so I want to continue with that and talk about the other playoff teams who did make it to the divisional round and how they can not only get past the division round but even make it to the World Series as well. Just talking about an overview of what they've done and how they can improve more. And let's get straight into it. So first I'm going to start off with the AL. And the first team I'm going to start off with is the Minnesota Twins. Now, the Twins have had a very interesting offseason. First, one of the big moves was letting Sonny Gray walk. Was really no competition for them to they were really not a big part of the competition to re-sign him. Obviously, he ended up going to the St. Louis Cardinals on a 3-year contract for $75 million. So on the surface, it looks really kind of interesting and weird that, okay, this guy just won the Cy Young for you, came over in a very successful trade, helped you win your first playoff game in like 19 years. So why would you let him go? Now, I think it's fair to wonder that, but it's kind of the same thing with the whole Twins offseason. They let a good amount of people go. They traded Jorge Polanco as well. So the fact is they just have a lot of good young talent. And I think that good young talent is going to be, just filling in for the spots they traded and let go, like Sonny Gray, like Jorge Polanco. Both those guys are very good veteran players who I think any team would love to have. It's just the fact that they have ready-made replacements already in their organization that can easily just replace their value and help them not overpay for someone they maybe don't think is going to repeat that, or they don't think is a long-term part of that future. So it makes sense to me for the Twins, right? Of course you have that ace tandem of Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, but you also have younger guys like Bailey Ober who can fill in, Chris Paddock coming back from injury. You have Anthony DeSclafani, who you just traded for, who's more of a depth piece, but still part of this. You have Louis Varland, who I think is going to be a big part of this. You have prospects like Simeon Woods Richardson. So, yes, you're letting go of Sonny Gray, a guy who was a Cy Young candidate for you, but you still have other guys who can fill in. A top 2 in that rotation of Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan is pretty great, anyways. So, as much as Sonny Gray is really good, he wasn't a necessity for them to re-sign, so it's not that big of a deal. Jorge Polanco, the same thing with Royce Lewis's the way he came onto the scene last year, especially in the playoffs. I think the writing was on the wall for Polanco to switch teams. You also have a youngster like Brooks Lee, who's probably going to make the MLB roster, probably going to be their opening day second baseman. So you have a lot of pieces in that Twins organization that are young that can easily fill in for these guys that you let walk. And also, you got some good players this offseason. You did that big trade with Seattle to trade Jorge Polanco. You got back Anthony DeSclafani, who's a nice step piece. You got back Justin Topa, who's a very good reliever. You got back a nice prospect, outfield prospect, who obviously not going to impact them this year, but is still a big part of that future, and I think was a good move. So when you are an organization like the Twins who develops these guys, these prospects very well, you have the flexibility of letting these veteran guys walk and not paying them so much and helping your long-term flexibility because you have such a good organizational philosophy in developing talent. And you may say, okay, well, they play in Minnesota. Who's going to sign there? So there's no point. Just re-sign these guys anyways because you're not going to sign a big free agent. I mean, Carlos Correa signed there. Carlos Correa was a superstar shortstop from Puerto Rico. I mean, who played in Houston, Texas before this. If Carlos Correa will sign there, I think any player would. I think you've seen more and more now, especially with how the Royals did this offseason. It's less about location and more about the organization and how they can win and what their philosophy is and what they've shown in the past. Now, a location certainly does help. I mean, obviously teams are going to want to rather go to a team like the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, Padres over, a team like the Royals or the Twins because of weather and stuff like that. But I don't think it's as big of a factor. So I definitely think this is a good offseason for the Twins. I mean, Manuel Margot was a nice trade for them. I like the Carlos Santana signing. They have a lot of good pieces, and I think the Twins are getting overlooked a little bit. And I definitely think they're going to be a big factor in this AL. I think they're probably the fourth best team right now in the American League. I would have the Astros, Orioles, and Yankees above them. But they still have a lot of good players. If Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa can play up to their status and be healthy, I think that improves your team so much. So I think they're the big X factors for this team and really looking forward to seeing what they can do. So yeah, Twins made some good moves, and I think they could definitely improve, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this year. Moving on to the other American League team who lost in the divisional round, and that is the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Orioles have had, an interesting offseason, to say the least. Starting off with, a few weeks ago, they did have a new change in ownership. I think it was good because their last ownership was not the best. I think any baseball fan knows that. They've known that for a little while now. You brought in Cal Ripken as an investor in part of the, as a minority owner in the Orioles as well. So that, bringing in a former legend of your team can never hurt. And right after their new owner came in, they acquired Corbin Burnes, one of the better pitchers in baseball. So I'm looking forward to their future. I mean, they've definitely gotten better this offseason, like 100%. I mean, not only are you going to have young prospects come up, like, of course, Mr. Jackson Holliday, who is unbelievable, but you're adding in Corbin Burnes to that rotation. I would like to see them add one more pitcher, which will probably go down in another segment, hint. But, yeah, I mean, I think they've had a good offseason. I definitely think they've improved, especially with the Corbin Burnes signing. The Kyle Bradish injury hurts a little bit, but I think Burnes adds another level of depth to that rotation they didn't have before. You also have younger guys like Grayson Rodriguez who can help in. You have John Means coming back from Tommy John, who definitely needs to prove himself after that injury. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the Orioles. Like I said, right now, I have them as the top 3 team in the AL. Anywhere from 3 to 1, I don't think is a bad choice. I think it's them, the Astros, and the Yankees as kind of the leaders of the pack right now. Again, you have the Twins, who I think are definitely a factor in this. The Blue Jays could make some noise if everything goes right. The Rangers and Mariners could as well. But right now I have those 3 teams as really the big guys in the AL and teams that can teams that are really my favorites for the American League and what they can do with that. So, yeah, looking forward to that, and looking forward to seeing how this young Orioles team plays, and especially with their new additions. I mean, I love what they've done. I mean, they're going to be so fun to watch. It's just incredible with all the young talent they have. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And, they won 101 games last year, so it's hard to get better than that. But the way you can is winning a playoff series, and that's what they need to do. Moving on to the NL here. And the first team is the Dodgers. And it's kind of hard to believe that the Dodgers were eliminated in the first round last year because all the noise they made this offseason and everyone who's been talking about them. So, it's very interesting with them. Again, they've made so much noise this offseason, so many signings, so many moves that, it's strange to think about. Oh, yeah, they lost in the first round. They won 1 game. Like, that's crazy to think about for me. But, yeah, I think the Dodgers have definitely improved this offseason. I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with that. Signing Yamamoto, Ohtani, Glass now traded for Paxton, Teoscar Hernandez. We've said so much about the Dodgers offseason we don't need to say more. They've 100% improved. They're probably the best team in baseball on paper right now. There is a good amount of fight in that NL right now. I mean, you have the Braves, of course, who I'm going to talk about actually next. You, of course, have the Diamondbacks, who if you watch the show or if you listen to it, I've said multiple times now how much I love the Diamondbacks offseason, how much I love what they did, and I'm really looking forward to watching them. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to this NL. It's definitely going to be a dogfight. I mean, you have such teams that have proved themselves. I mean, the Dodgers, Braves, Phillies, Diamondbacks, you even have the Reds, like a younger team like that. The Cubs, who made a lot of additions. Giants, Padres, Mets made some. Like, it's going to be very, very fun to watch this NL. And, we've had a surprise these past few years coming out of the NL. So I don't think that should change this year, and we'll see who comes out of it. But coming back from that pretty horrible showing last year in the playoffs, the Dodgers definitely need to improve themselves, need to show that they are built for the playoffs. I think not having Lance Lynn on your roster is a good sign for that. You have so much more pitching. I will say, there's a good amount of question marks in that Dodgers rotation that people don't really want to mention. I mean, you have Yamamoto, who unfortunately is a question mark because it is his first year here. He's still amazing. You guys know my thoughts on Yamamoto. I think he's elite. He's going to be a top 3 pitcher in baseball rather quickly. That's how highly I think of him. But it is his first season in the MLB, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. So definitely have to look at that as a bit of a question mark. You have Buehler, who's coming back from 2 full seasons out. He's a question mark. Glasnow has been hurt in his career a lot. That's another question mark. Paxton's contract had to be put down of the guarantees because of injury risk. So Bobby Miller, Emmett Sheehan, good pitchers, but both young, so you have to look at them as a risk. You don't know what's going to happen with them. You don't know how they're going to perform in a bigger role. So as much as the Dodgers have had it a lot and, of course, have been amazing signings, there are some risks there, and I think it's going to be, I think they're going to do very well, but I think when it comes to playoffs, it's really going to, their true colors are going to shine like the last few years, and I'm looking forward to see what happens here and see what they do. So next, we have the team I just talked about as a competitor to the Dodgers, of course, the Atlanta Braves. Braves, again, also had kind of a peculiar offseason. I thought it was for sure they were going to sign one of the big free agents for starting pitchers. I kind of thought Blake Snell was going to go there. He could still go there. I mean, they could be in negotiation with him right now, and we would never know because it's the Braves and they don't let anything leak. So good for them. But they've made a few interesting moves, but no big ones. So first, they signed Reynaldo Lopez to a 3-year contract to be a starter. If you know Reynaldo Lopez, you know he is not a starter. He is a reliever. And they're going to be stretching him out to make him a starter. It's a very interesting move. A lot of teams are doing it as well, trying to stretch out proven relievers so they think they have good stuff to be a starter. Definitely a question mark, but I think they just didn't like the starting pitcher prices on the market. They thought it was too much, and I guess that's why they're doing it. So, I definitely think that's something to watch here, how Reynaldo Lopez does perform as a starting pitcher. They also traded for Chris Sale, of course, who, it's 2024, so we don't know how great Chris Sale really can be. He's still a good player, but at the same time, there's been some injury risks in the past few seasons. His stuff has gone down. I mean, he shined in his first spring training debut with them, but there are also question marks for Chris Sale, of course, considering, what the past few years of his career look like. But if you gave up a lot for him, actually, in my opinion. I think Vaughn Grissom was a good amount to give up. I'm very high in him, so I think this trade could blow up in your face in the next few years or so. But again, I've learned to not doubt anything the Braves have done, especially as a Mets fan being in their division. So I'm not going to sit here and say what all the moves they made were absolutely horrible. But I think there are some question marks you have to look into with it. Especially, they made one starting addition for the lineup, and that was Jared Kelenic. Obviously, Kelenic was a top prospect in baseball for 2 different teams, the Mariners and the Mets. And he just did not perform very well for the Mariners once he got traded there. And, had some attitude issues as well. I think kind of forced his way out of Seattle just with that in his performance. So, playing now in Atlanta, he gets to be in probably one of the better lineups in baseball. Hit in the 9 spot, not that many expectations, but if he does fail, I think you kind of have to look at maybe an end of his baseball career. I mean, it's that drastic at this point. So, it's another move that I thought was good, but just not something that really takes them over the top, in my opinion. When you have teams who added, like the Dodgers, a team like the Phillies, who have just owned you in the playoffs these past few years, I definitely think you have to look at that and kind of think about what's gonna go on with that, and kind of think about your long-term future and see if you want to add more. I mean, Blake Snell's still out there. Jordan Montgomery is. If they sign one of them, I would not be surprised, especially with how low-key their rumors are. So, I think that's something you have to look at. And hopefully all these 4 teams can elevate themselves to get past the divisional round, go to the championship, maybe even make the World Series. So going to be something exciting to watch here. So that's the end of my first segment. We're going to go to a break here, but our second segment is going to be about smaller free agents. Free agents still left in the market that I think are important to talk about, and I think are still difference makers, even though they don't have the highest name profile. So we're definitely going to talk about that, and we'll talk about it right after this break. So see you then. Bye.